Ah, hello. I've been expecting you. Have you been expecting me? I bet you haven't. Bet you thought I was gonna be another one-hit wonder. Someone who got some clout off a college reaction video and faded back into the dark recesses of the internet. But that's not the case. I'm back and I'm better than ever. Today we're gonna be talking about the SAT. You're gonna learn a lot of knowledge. So much knowledge that you might have to abandon former friendships. Relationships, parents might seem stale. It seems like you can't relate to anyone anymore. Because of all this knowledge. So click away from this video if you want to remain blissfully unaware of the knowledge that's out there on the SAT. But if not, well, strap in, because it's going to be one heck of a ride, folks. Alright guys, so this was a very highly requested video, but today I'm going to be talking about how I jumped from a 1320 to a 1570 on my SAT in just one try. You might notice that there's a bit of a change of scenery for this video. I'm actually currently at my mom's seminary. Yes, my mother is in seminary, visiting some family for Easter weekend. Hey Mom, I'm making a video about how to get into seminary. Do you want to be in my video?
I would be glad to.
Just kidding, I'm not making that video. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So to begin with, just for any of you guys who are new to the SAT, I want to give a very brief overview of what the SAT comprises. So the SAT has two sections. You have English and you have math. On the English side, it's broken up into reading comprehension and grammar. And on the math side, you have calculator math and no calculator math. Both sections are scored on a scale from 400 to 800. And so in other words, the lowest possible score is an 800 and the highest possible score is a 1600. A lot of people tend to ask, what's a good and what's a bad SAT score? That's all relative. I mean, the SAT is just a test after all, but it is a factor in college admissions. So what I basically did is I looked at the schools that I was interested in, I looked at their SAT ranges, and then I set a goal based off of that. So for Cornell here, it says that their SAT range is 1410 to 1530. So I saw that and I said, well, if 1410 is the 25th percentile of accepted students, and if 1530 is the 75th percentile of accepted students, I should probably be somewhere above 1410 and maybe even closer to 1530. In other words, you should be above the 25th percentile to have a chance, but to be safe, you should be closer to the 75th percentile. So now I'm going to get into kind of my story with the SAT. So in the beginning of my junior year, I took the PSAT, not knowing anything about the SAT or how to take standardized tests. I ended up getting a 1320, which was a 690 in reading and a 630 in math. But, as I said earlier, a 1320 wasn't really good enough for Cornell or some of the other schools that I was looking at, so I set out to improve my score. I set my test date for the June SAT of my junior year, and I started studying 8 weeks before taking it. My commitment was that I was going to study for an hour per night, and I was going to take a practice test every Saturday leading up to the June SAT. After these 8 weeks, I took the SAT and ended up with a 1570, which was a 250-point improvement from my PSAT. So, now I'm going to get into how I actually studied for the SAT. The first question that a lot of people ask is, what company should I use to study? There's a lot out there. There's Kaplan, Princeton Review, several large test-taking companies. For me personally, I used Khan Academy. So a lot of you probably know this already, but Khan Academy recently launched a completely free online SAT study database. And I think that Khan Academy is even better than some of these big companies like Kaplan or Princeton Review, because actual SAT writers wrote the questions for Khan Academy. The reasons for why Khan Academy is so much better than these other test-taking organizations is a pretty complex question, but essentially the SAT realized that unless they released something similar to what the ACT had going on, they weren't going to be able to compete, as more and more people were taking the ACT, and the SAT heavily favored the wealthy who could afford private tutors. So Khan Academy is free, and obviously there's an entire internet out there with tons of awesome materials, so my advice to you is don't spend a cent, don't look at Kaplan, don't look at Princeton Review, Barron's as well. In my experience with even things like AP tests, none of those companies are very helpful, they're not very good, and you can find much better things for free. Two sites to get you started that you should look at would be cracksat.net and the Reddit thread, just r/SAT, are both very helpful, very free, and you'll learn a lot of things that the big companies frankly just won't tell you. So now I'm going to get into my specific study regimen. So to begin with, on Khan Academy, because Khan Academy collaborated with the SAT, you can actually import your PSAT results into Khan Academy. So I did that. And for the first week, based on the results of my PSAT, Khan Academy fed me questions of answers that I had gotten wrong on that test. Every night for an hour, I would answer more and more of these questions. I had a little spiral-bound notebook that I used for my scratch work that I could save and look at later. So Khan Academy has 8 free practice tests online, which I cannot recommend highly enough. They are so similar to the real test, it's not even funny. They help me like crazy. If you do nothing else, use these online practice tests. But after the first week of studying an hour a night, I ended up with a 1380 on my first practice test on the weekend. So after taking my first practice test, I created an Excel spreadsheet where I logged all of my incorrect answers. And the thing that's really nice about Khan Academy is it not only tells you what you got wrong, but it gives it a category. So for each answer, I would log what section it was in and what the specific category was. So my phone just ran out of space because I'm a YouTuber and I film on my phone, but I just had to delete my birth certificate and some other things, and now we're good, we can get back to filming. So just reading from some of the things that I got wrong, I had linear equation word problems, nonlinear equation graphs, operations with polynomials, analysis in science, circles, function notation, focus shift, analysis, argument. And so I would log all of my incorrect answers, and then I would go back and I would figure out how to solve them correctly. Then what I did is I had a Google document where I would write down my incorrect answers, how I could have solved them correctly, and what I can learn from that. So say for one problem, I forgot how to do the Pythagorean theorem. I would write down a squared plus b squared equals c squared on this Google document, and then every night before bed or when I would wake up in the morning, I would look over this document and just look at the things that I needed to memorize and that I was consistently getting wrong and kind of commit those to memory so that I could fix them in the future. So what's really nice about Khan Academy is they not only categorize your wrong answers for you, they sync that with their program so that on their database, it shows you what you got wrong and it gives you problems similar to what you got wrong on the previous week's test. Ain't no Barron's gonna do that for you. Ain't no Kaplan gonna do that for you. Ain't no Princeton Review gonna do that for you. So for the next number of weeks, I kind of repeated the same process. Basically using this system of reviewing what I got wrong and trying to figure out how to do it right the next time, I would study for some period of time each night, usually an hour. I wouldn't always get to that number, but I was consistent. And that's something you need to focus on. Like, even if you're not doing an hour a night, you need to do something every day. Even if it's 2 problems, just 10 minutes. Consistency is so key with the SAT. I can't stress that enough. One of the reasons that I don't really recommend tutors is that they work with you like once a week. And so you work once a week and you learn and then you forget everything. If you self-study, you can be doing things every day, learning a little bit, building on that knowledge, and it works so much better for meaningful study. And so just to show you how effective this study method was, I'm gonna go through the 8 weeks and show you how my practice test scores slowly climbed over time. The first practice test, I got a 1380, then I got a 1420, 1440, 1470, 1480, 1490, 1530, 1500. So as you can see, 7 out of the 8 weeks, my score improved upon the previous week. And then when the test date rolled around, I was so ready, I knocked it out of the park and ended up getting a 1570. So one caveat I just want to add quickly is that I didn't take the practice tests kind of helter-skelter over time. I took them every weekend under simulated test conditions at 8 o'clock a.m. on a Saturday, or whatever the time that the actual SAT is. And it's really important that you do that because it gets you into the habit of being in a quiet room for 3 hours on a Saturday morning. That's a habit that you also need to build over time. So I would highly recommend just taking your practice test under real test conditions in a quiet room on a Saturday morning. So just to review everything that I did, I used Khan Academy to study. I took a practice test every weekend. I used Khan Academy's database to study based on the answers I got wrong. I kept a log of every answer that I got wrong and made sure to study those things. And I had a Google document where I wrote out how to solve all the problems and what to learn from all the answers that I got incorrect on practice tests. So next, I just want to get into whether or not a tutor is worth it. For me personally, a lot of my friends had tutors. Some of these kids even had tutors from like 9th grade through 12th grade just studying for the SAT. And I was always curious, like, is a tutor actually worth it? Well, in my personal opinion, no, a tutor is not worth the money. It can be a big financial burden on your family, and you can really just save a lot of money and time and effort by self-studying, and it's a lot more effective, I promise. The issues with a tutor are basically, most tutors are old, they probably haven't taken the SAT in a bunch of years, and they're getting information from Barron's or Khan Academy, or essentially just places that you can find the same information. Also, tutors only meet with you some days of the week. They're not there with you every single day to make sure you study. So you're really wasting your time if you're not keeping up with the work every day, because you'll forget the information you've already learned. That being said, if you're really lazy and you have trouble with self-motivation, it can be good to have a tutor because a tutor can make sure that you're studying. But yeah, essentially, you don't need to spend money to study for the SAT. You can do it by yourself. You just have to self-study. Now, briefly, I'm gonna talk about where I got the motivation to self-study. 8 weeks sounds like a short time, but it's really long, and it gets tough when you're studying an hour a day and taking a practice test every weekend and telling your friends that you have to go to bed early because you're taking a practice test on Saturday. But the way that I stayed motivated was focusing on the end goal. At the time that I was preparing for the SAT, I really wanted to go to Princeton. So I had a picture of Princeton as the background of my phone. That being said, don't make it your lock screen, you'll look pretentious. Make it the home screen so that only you can see it and other people don't have to suffer through your weird self-punishment style motivation. So basically, anytime I was playing on my phone, going through Instagram or whatever, I would see that picture of Princeton and really be reminded of what my end goal was. And it worked out pretty well to help me study. Other things you could do are maybe print out a picture of your favorite college and paste it on the wall above your computer, set reminders on your phone. There's any number of things you can do to keep yourself motivated, but I'm convinced that self-study is better than studying with a tutor. And so to end off the video, I'm just gonna talk a little bit about some things that I wish I knew before taking the SAT. So one thing I would definitely recommend is take the SAT earlier than I did. I took it in June of my junior year, and that was very stressful. It was too late. Start taking it early. So two things that are very helpful that a lot of you may not know about are score choice and super scoring. So score choice is the idea that you can choose to send which scores that you want to colleges. So say you take the SAT once and really bomb it, get a horrible score, none of your colleges will ever see this score. Only the College Board has access to it. The second thing I want to talk about is super scoring, which is the idea that a lot of colleges consider your highest section, not your highest composite score. So maybe one time you take the SAT and you get a 750 in math and a 500 in reading. And you take it again and you get a 750 in reading and a 500 in math. Some schools will take both of those highest scores and they'll combine them and just say, you got a 1500. And this is really widespread. I know Cornell does it, and a lot of other elite schools do it, so definitely check if your school does it, because if they do, that can really change how you study, and maybe you'll want to just study for one section, one test, and another section, another test. A lot of people on the internet will tell you this, but the SAT is not an IQ test. It's a test at how well you can take the SAT. So one example that I would use is a lot of times when I was taking the SAT, they had this type of problem where they would ask you a really easy reading comprehension problem, and then it was followed up by, where is this found in the text? And it got to the point that by the time I was taking the actual SAT, I would see the problem, no, this is easier than the rest of the problems, and I know I'm gonna have to go find it in the text. So that saved me time. I would just go find it in the text before even having to read the following problem. So even if you're really good at math or reading, you need to study for the SAT because it's not an IQ test, it's a test on how well you can take the test. So that's all for this video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you learned something helpful. And make sure to subscribe. There's going to be a lot coming from this channel. Even though I was wearing my Cornell sweatshirt in this video, I haven't officially committed anywhere yet. I'm currently looking at Wheaton College and Cornell, but that announcement will be coming very shortly, as well as a video explaining where I went and why. But yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.